modelers, and welcome to the last episode of Modeling from Zero, a video series by AK Interactive. In today's video, we'll be finishing the metal parts as well as all the details of our tank. So don't miss out, as you will surely learn a thing or two that will come in handy when working on your own projects. So let's get to it. We'll start with the final retouches on our Sherman. As you can see, we're placing these gasoline canisters and the wooden box in the back. We'll glue them to the vehicle using super glue, and then we'll fix their position with a brown thread that will stand in for a piece of rope. The next step will be creating our very own tow cable. The quality of the one made of plastic is not very good, and so we've intertwined some copper filaments to make a cable that would appear more realistic. We're using the ends of the plastic cable and we've glued them to our tow cable. We'll wait for the glue to dry completely, and then we'll be able to prime the cable using primer and microfill black paint. For this primer, it's no issue to adhere to surfaces such as metal, although it's important that the surface that is going to be primed is completely clean. To ensure this, we should clean it with alcohol before proceeding with the priming process. And when we do that, and after we've waited for the primer to dry, we will mix together black and gunmetal. We'll apply this texture to the cable using an old brush. Keep in mind that this kind of twisted cable is typically very abrasive, and it can destroy our newer brushes. A good trick to paint metal in a simple way, if we don't have much experience yet, is to use gunmetal paint and a technique known as the dry brush. We wet the brush in the paint, remove the majority of the paint on a piece of a paper towel, and then start painting. The brush strokes should go in the same direction to highlight the edges of the objects. So if you're just starting in this hobby, we recommend you for sure to try this technique, as it will help you highlight objects very easily. Now let's paint the weapon mount of the machine gun using olive drab beige. At this point we must be very careful so that we don't ruin the work we've done on the metal parts. As you can see in the background, we're taking the paint from the wet palette. This way we can keep the paint fresh during those long days of painting. Next, we try to paint with brass some of the bullets in the ammunition belt, just to give it a more realistic appearance. We check the distance between the cartridges and then we paint the tips with gunmetal. And with mahogany brown, we'll paint the wooden parts of the machine guns. When painting a scene or adding accessories to our vehicles, it's important to pay attention to the details, so that we don't leave anything out and make sure that everything is painted. Afterwards, we get to one of the most delicate parts of the whole process, which is placing the machine gun in its final position. To do so, we'll use a toothpick with a drop of super glue on one end, and we'll very delicately keep the machine gun in place until the glue has dried completely. Now the Sherman is starting to look much better, isn't it? When working on a bigger model with many parts, sometimes we have to go back to paint that we've used before because there's something we have forgotten to paint, as is the case here with the ends of the cable. So we'll place a drop of olive drab onto our wet palette and finish these details. We must be very delicate when placing the cable we've previously painted. because we're working with two elements that have the potential to damage our model. A metal thread can scratch the paint, and the glue could also ruin the final result. But with a little bit of patience and thanks to the flexibility of the metal, we can shape it the way we want to, and we'll work slowly on this small detail that will certainly give more personality to our scale model. After we fix the areas where the paint might have come off, we'll consider our tow cable finished. As a side note, remember to keep your workspace tidy, so that you can focus on these small details and don't get distracted by something that's in your proximity. We'll continue with the accessories and the equipment in the back of the vehicle. First, we must prepare the scene or the image in our mind. Play around with the different elements until you find the correct configuration. And when we have found it, we can fix the piece in place with some superglue. Keep in mind to also join these parts with the chassis of the tank as much as possible, so that when we're carrying the model from one place to another, they don't come off. And if placing the machine gun was a delicate and nerve-wracking job, wait until you see what comes next. We're about to fasten the different accessories to the backside of the vehicle, and this without a doubt was one of the most complicated moments of the entire process of assembly and painting. So what we did was to intertwine 3 very fine pieces of sewing thread and keep them together by adding a bit of superglue to the ends. Now we only need to make knots and keep the thread tensed, but not too much, as that could destroy the details of our tank, and we don't want that to happen after all the work and effort we've put into it until now. If you're not sure about the way soldiers fasten this kind of equipment to their Shermans, you can look up images on the internet. You'll be able to find plenty of references of real tanks. The most important thing when it comes to this part of the process is to maintain the tension of the cable, and for that, superglue and tweezers can be very helpful. As you can see, this is a work of trial and error as we try to create our own spiderweb around the objects and try to do it in the most realistic way possible. Moments like these are a proof that in scale modeling, patience and perseverance are extremely important. So don't give in to despair when trying to give your models the best possible appearance. And when we have finally finished this process, we'll secure our work and keep the threads tensed with a couple of drops of superglue, applied once again with a toothpick or wooden stick. Once dry, we'll cut them with our plier cutting tool. We can also place some cables in a more forced position, for which we just need to apply some superglue. When we have finally tied and fastened all of our accessories, we'll take gunmetal paint to paint a bucket, one of the most ordinary items and one that tank crew members certainly kept handy. So once we have applied a base coat to our bucket with around 10% dilution, we'll wait for it to dry and apply a wash using a very diluted black paint to turn our bucket into a used and dirty tool. Afterwards, we can outline the edges with natural steel to simulate light reflection on the edges of the bucket. This bucket will be placed near the tracks of the tank, and so it makes sense that it would be exposed to dust from the tracks, which is why we'll do some weathering using desert dust. This liquid pigment will go all over the lower part of the bucket. And when it dries, we can remove the excess with a bit of thinner. This process requires, once again, patience, as we'll need to go over this several times until we achieve the appropriate effect. When we are finished, we'll repeat the process we followed with the rest of the accessories. A little knot, a couple of drops of super glue, and we'll place the bucket in the desired spot. This is without a doubt a very common accessory, and it will give our war machine a more homely feeling. We're finally getting close to the end. Now it will be the time for outlining and adding the final touches and details to our armored vehicle. So after the grand job in the backside of our tank, we'll move to the front. And for this area, we'll need our liquid pigments, specifically desert dust and medium earth, to imitate some dust in the front part of the vehicle. As we could see in the previous video, the key to success is in mixing the different products together while they're still wet. This way the different colors melt together and the appearance we can achieve is more realistic. Remember that if for whatever reason you're not happy with the result you've obtained with the liquid pigments, you can always remove them with some thinner infused paper towel. And even if we have focused on the use of liquid pigments throughout this video, don't forget that there are also powdered pigments that can help us achieve different kinds of textures and finishes. So the best thing you can do is try both options and see which one you like better. After this, we take a close look at our tank and visually revise our work to see if there is any detail that we might have missed. And although we're happy with the result, there's always room for improvement, so certainly the next vehicle will be much better than this one. While doing the visual checking, we noticed that the muzzle of our cannon looks too clean for a tank with supposedly lots of damage in battle. So we'll add the burnt grease pigment to the tip to make it look like there were shots fired. This way we make the base of the cannon darker and give it a more dirty and used appearance than the rest. And so friends, this is the end of the first season of Modeling from Zero. We hope that you have enjoyed these videos as much as we have enjoyed making them for you, and keep an eye on AK Interactive News as there are many surprises on the way. So this is all we have for you here in Modeling from Zero. We picked a model and worked on it from the very beginning, the first few steps, up to the final details and retouches. We hope that you have learned some tricks and you can put the advice we've offered throughout this series to the test when working on your own models. Finally, remember to follow the AK Interactive on the different social media, as there are more surprises on the way that we hope that you all will like. Enjoy the rest of your summer and we'll see you soon. Bye!